Oh yeah, it's working.
Okay. So let's kind of back up and say what a decimal is. Did somebody try to put into words what purpose decimals have? Cece?
Sometimes you can take them into percents.
Hang on one second. I can't hear you. One more time.
Sometimes you can change them into percents.
You can change them to percents.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. Good. We'll come back to that. Any other thoughts? Why do we have decimals? What are they? Caleb?
To help us keep track of numbers that are smaller than whole numbers.
There's a good phrase. Smaller than whole numbers. What's a whole number?
A whole number is like the ones and
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is actually 0. It starts a whole number, but something smaller than a whole. Can you give me examples of real life things that are quantified, that are measured by things smaller than a whole? Jackson?
bugs.
What does that mean? You have to clarify for me for that one. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, how about another one? Carter?
I was gonna say money.
Money. How about money? Things don't just cost $1, $10, $20, right? It'd be easy if it did. But you have cents. You have less than 100, less than $1, less than a whole dollar. $1.25. Okay? So good. So money. Come on, what's some others? Some things where you have decimal parts.
If you're measuring things,
Measurement. Things aren't fully on inches or feet or something like that, or even meters or whatever. So that's a good one. Measurement. Caleb.
like when you're weighing something.
Weight. Good.
Grading papers.
Grading papers. Interesting. Sometimes you get half credit. 0.5, right? Sometimes your grade is 30.5. 30, not 30. I meant like 9.5. Okay, what else? Can you think of more? Anybody have a shoe size that's like something and a half, something 0.5? Okay. So decimals are used to measure, or I want you to know that word, quantify. Do you see the word quant in there, like quantity? Okay, that's what it means, like to measure a quantity. Values. So we said things like money, measurements, what else did we say?
Bugs.
I'm not writing that one, sorry. Oh, shoe size would be measurements. I thought we said one more.
Legs, like legs.
Weight. What did you say? Cece?
Oh, grading papers.
I still didn't hear what you said.
Grading papers.
Oh, papers. Scores. How about averages? Like, anybody follow any sport where the statistics are, in decimals? A lot of those. So we need decimals. What are decimals based on? I don't know if that's, maybe I could give you a better lead-in question. Like the math part of decimals. When you picture a decimal, and I tell you to read the decimal, let's do that. How do you read that decimal other than 6.2? Natalia? You were gonna say 6.2. I'll help you out. 6 and 2 tenths. Yes. So this is read 6 and 2 tenths. This part's important because all place value, you ever hear that? Place value is based on tens. So is the decimal system, okay? So, help me out. You have your whole number, and then you have a decimal, then you have tenths. What's next, Victor? Tenths. What's the next power of 10? Hundredths, right? And the next one, Ivy, after hundreds would be thousands. Then we get to 10,000s, 100,000s, all of that stuff, right? Is a decimal important? Is a decimal point important?
Yeah.
Would you like them to do this? Why is a decimal point important, Carter? So it totally changes the value, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, my mom and I were talking, she said, I have to go to the bank to cash this check. And I said, oh, okay. I said, how much is it for? Because I'm just being nosy, right? And she says, it's for $74. I said, oh, cool. So I looked at it and I go, Mom, this is for $740. And she was like, what? Because she just wasn't paying attention. There's just a lot of things going on. That's a big deal, right? If I'm going to the bank and I'm expecting $74, so I get $740, that's a good day, right? So when you're old enough to fill out your own taxes, if you put the decimal in the wrong space, that's a bad thing. It really is, because either you're not reporting something correctly or you're saying you have a different amount than you actually do, and it's just not a good thing. Decimal points matter. So when we're doing these decimal problems and the answer is 3.58 and you get 35.8, you can't say, close enough, because it's not, okay? And decimals, like Father said when he was in here, you use them all the time. You really use them all the time. Now you might be thinking, yeah, but I have a calculator. Sure, I agree with you. I use a calculator too. I think it's funny when I'm sitting at a restaurant and it's time to leave the tip and people are like, you're the math teacher, what's the tip? I'm like, really? You can figure this out too. That's another day, another thing to teach, but that's a decimal. And I use my calculator on my phone when I'm doing it. So I'm not saying we're going to totally ignore tools that help us out in life, but we need to know how to deal with them without the tools as well, okay? So, no, I didn't want you. I want this. Let's go with a different color. Okay. Let's use an example here. I'll start with the easy tenths place. 3.5 plus 2.8. If I add those up, what do you normally do when I say, okay, write it? Do you write it like that?
No.
How do you write it, Terry?
You line up the decimal
You
points.
line up the decimals. And I actually should say line up decimal points, right? Because those are two decimals. 3.5 is a decimal, but that's an actual decimal point, right? So we line up the decimal points. I'm going to put another word here that's going to be extremely important that you're going to get sick of hearing me say, if I can actually say. Before you calculate, estimate. What's the word estimate mean? Jackson, I don't see your pencil writing notes.
It's
Right.
like going to the nearest one.
Okay, and do you know another word for that? You are on it. Starts with an R.
Rounding.
Good girl. Rounding. So estimate is rounding, but it's not, because some people say it's guessing. Well, it's not random guessing. It definitely is not random guessing. But if I line up my decimal points, and I know I'm going to add that up, before I do that, what is 3.5 close to? Caden?
3.5.
If you rounded that to a whole number, it would be,
4.
do you remember how to round? Would it be helpful to go through that, everybody? You're not saying anything, so I'm gonna say that. So I'm gonna go to another slide real quick. I'll let you write that down first, and then I'll go over it with you. And I'll tell you, rounding and estimating, that is another skill that everybody does all the time. Does this look familiar? Have you worked with rounding?
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't hurt to refresh your memory, right?
Do you have the amount collector?
I do.
Or am I gonna here for Ordo?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go that way. Unless you wanna be on camera. Do you wanna take your stuff with you, or you can, I don't think you're gonna be probably back before we're done. Okay, so what I have here is if I wanna round something, and like this, I'd have to stipulate, like round it to the whole number, which in this case is 3, right? So, Caden, you're gonna help me do the 3.5 again. So I'm gonna look at the next place value. I'm gonna look over here, and if it's 5 or above, then that number I was looking at rounds up. But if it's less than 5, it's not gonna round up, it's gonna stay. The number's gonna go down, that doesn't make sense, but it'll stay the same. So following that, 3.5 would be about what? There you go, good job. I don't wanna say equals 4, because it's not equal to 4, but it's about 4, right? And 2.8 would be about 3. Is everybody with me now on the rounding? Okay, yes ma'am.
Okay, so do you only put the decimal or is there another number, do you only put the decimal there? There's no decimal there, so do you only put it the decimal number?
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding, but there really is a decimal there, it's just there.
So, when do we,
You don't need to see the decimal point unless there's numbers after the whole number. Is that what you asked? Okay. All right, so now back to this one. Before you calculate, estimate it.